Hi y'all, welcome back to Farm Girl Diaries. My name is Caitlin and we are going to be continuing our sourdough journey today. Today we're going to be making a homemade pizza. So I'm going to be honest right up front, I am not a pizza person. It's not my favorite thing. I really never like it. But I was kind of feeling like making a homemade pizza today, and I felt like if I could make it myself with my own ingredients, maybe I'd like it a little bit more than other pizza. I don't know, but we're going to try it. So we're going to be doing everything from scratch. My crust is going to be homemade, the sauce and all the toppings are going to be homemade, and the cheese is going to be homemade too. So we're doing all of that today on this video, but we're going to get started with the crust first. It is about 11 a.m. So the crust takes between 2 to 4 hours to rise. So you can do it on the heat mat if you're running later. Every sourdough I do, I'm always like, use a heat mat, it'll help with the rise time. But I'm starting it right before lunch, and this is going to be for dinner, so I think we have plenty of time. To get started, we're going to make our crust first. So we're going to be getting started with our dry ingredients first. I have my mixer set up with the dough attachment, and this is just going to help us knead it. I have 300 grams of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of instant or dried yeast. So I'm just going to throw that into my mixer. Next, I have 227 grams of unfed starter. So you can see my starter is a little bubbly and active. I fed him 2 days ago, put him in the fridge, got him out yesterday afternoon, and he's still a little active. So for this recipe, you do want an unfed starter. The longer it's been unfed, the more sour your crust is going to be. So I don't really like the super sour flavor. So that's why I fed him, put him in the fridge. I fed him, let him rise, put him in the fridge, got him out, and he was supposed to be falling, and he was just taking a long time to fall today. But if you like the sour flavor, go ahead and get that sourdough directly out of the fridge without feeding him for the past couple of days. The more liquid that is on top of your starter, the more hooch you have on top of your starter, makes for a more sour dough. If you don't want that sourdough, plan in advance, plan 2 or 3 days ahead of time to feed your starter, let him do the whole rise and fall, and then use him. He's a little bubbly. I got him out. My kitchen is warm today, so I'm not really sure why he's still so active, but we're gonna go ahead. So this is 227 grams of flour we're gonna toss in here. Let me get a spatula. Okay, now the recipe calls for between 170 or 140 and 170 grams of water. I started at 150 grams. I'm just slowly going to add this water in until we get a nice dough. At this point, what I do really like about making homemade pizza as well is you can add flavorings into the crust. You can add herbs and spices and all kinds of deliciousness into the crust. So obviously the first thing I think of, if you know me, if you've been following me for any amount of time, cowboy candy is the first thing I think about adding. I'm not going to. I'm trying to restrain myself. I'm trying not to put cowboy candy in everything, even though I think it would be delicious in everything. But I am going to add some garlic powder to this. I'm just going to do a little bit of a sprinkle. Because who doesn't like a garlic powder or like a garlic crust, right? So a little bit of a sprinkle. And then I'm going to turn this guy on, get him mixing, and slowly start adding my water until I get a nice dough. Once I get a nice dough, we're going to let it knead for 7 minutes or until the dough wraps up on the hook. When it wraps up on the hook, that's how we know the dough is done. Okay, this dough has been going, as you see, it's wrapped around the dough hook. It has cleaned the side of the bowl, and it is ready to come off and rise. Oops. I almost forgot. You gotta grease the bowl you're gonna put it in. There we go. I like to use just regular olive oil spray. I don't like anything like flavor or anything like that. I just like a regular olive oil spray. And then put him in here. Look at this. It's a beautiful, nice dough ball, nice and tight and soft. and then I'm gonna cover him with a wet towel, and we're gonna let him sit for 2 to 4 hours or until he doubles in size. Currently, he looks like that. It has been 4 hours, y'all. And look at this dough. Look how big that is. It's beautiful and fluffy. Perfect. So I'm not quite ready for this. It is just about 4 o'clock and I don't want to eat until like 6 or 6:30. So I'm going to throw this in the fridge, and this is just going to stop it from proofing, stop it from getting overproofed, and just going to chill in the fridge until I'm ready for the next step. So the next step for the pizza is we're going to make our own mozzarella cheese. Now, I have never done this ever. But there's always a time to learn, right? So we are going to attempt to make mozzarella cheese, and hopefully we're successful. Hopefully. When making cheese, you want to ideally use raw milk. So I went and bought a half gallon of raw milk, which we're going to come back and talk about. But you can use pasteurized non-homogenized milk. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But you can use just store-bought milk that has been pasteurized to make most cheeses. I decided I'm going to go the raw route, and I bought this half gallon. The recipe calls for a gallon, and let me tell you why I only bought half a gallon. This half a gallon of raw milk was $6.19. And I feel like that was a lot. You do get $2 back when I take this glass bottle back. So the next time I want to make cheese, I'll take this bottle back and I'll get $2 back. But it does that was still it's still gonna be $4.19 for half a gallon of milk. So to make a full gallon of cheese, or a full gallon's worth of cheese with the rebate for the glass bottle, it would still have been over $8. And I don't know if that's worth it. Because I know I could buy a ball of mozzarella cheese at the store for probably not that big, but like a decent size, probably like $7 or $8. So I don't know if it's worth it. So I wasn't spending no $12 on milk to make one batch of mozzarella cheese, when honestly for that price I could have bought a whole pizza. So it was the price versus the value of it, I guess. One day maybe I'll have a cow or a goat that can give me raw milk. If you already do, you're very lucky. I'm jealous of you right now, but I don't. So I'm going to use this, and then I am going to try it. I don't know if I'm going to try it on this video or not. We'll see how much I like this, but I am going to try to make mozzarella cheese with a gallon of regular milk. See if I'm successful with that. So like I said, I've never done this before. I don't have any idea what I'm doing. I have notes written down. I followed Jess from Roots and Refuge. I followed her recipe, or this is her recipe that I'm going to be following. And we're going to see how this goes. We're going to be learning together. The first thing you do is you ice your pan. And I just put one ice cube in my pan. You can't see it, but I just put one ice cube in my pan. I'm kind of going to toss it around and wait for the ice cube to melt. And this is again coming from Jessica Sowers at Roots and Refuge. I don't know if this is old wives' tale or not, but apparently having the ice on the bottom prevents your cheese from scalding. So when you pour your milk into your pan, your cheese doesn't scald. So if it works for everybody else, it's gonna work for me. So I have one ice cube, and I'm using a stainless steel pot. Now this is the only one I have, and I'm not even 100% sure it's stainless steel. I think it is. I'm not 100% sure. You need to use a stainless steel pot, aluminum, or like even cast iron, Dutch oven, enamel Dutch oven. They're all reactive. So you need to use stainless steel. And I was telling Dad I needed a stainless steel pan when I was doing this. And he was like, well, back in the old days, they didn't have stainless steel. So I don't know if they didn't have stainless steel, or maybe they didn't make mozzarella. I have no idea. But in today's day and age, to make mozzarella, I need stainless steel. And I'm trying to keep like my head in the middle of all this light. It's a terrible time to be making cheese right now. At least where your location is, but it's the best I can do. So I have the ice all melted in the bottom of the pan, and there is just a nice layer of water on the bottom of the pan. So the recipe calls for 1 gallon of milk, I'm doing half a gallon. So I'm cutting this recipe in half. I don't know how to open this. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to put half a gallon of milk into my stainless steel pan. I hope it all fits. And you do want to use the newer the milk, it just fits. The newer the milk, the better the cheese. So this is yesterday's milk, so I think we'll be good. For 1 gallon of milk, it calls for 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid. Now, citric acid you can buy online. I actually do have some in the basement I use to make shower steamers. I don't know if that's food quality or not, but you can also use lemon juice. So I have bottled lemon juice, which we're gonna try it with. So for 1 gallon of milk, it calls for 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid. And then if you're using lemon juice, I have the notes. If you're using lemon juice, it's 1/8 cup of lemon juice for each half teaspoon of citric acid. Did we get that? Did everyone understand that? I don't think I did. So for a gallon, I need 1.5 teaspoons. For half a gallon, we need half of 1.5 teaspoons. So I'm gonna eyeball. I'm gonna do 1/8 cup of lemon juice. I think that's pretty close. Okay. 1/8 cup lemon juice. And then I'll do another little splash. Do as I say, not as I do. So you want to put on medium-low heats. And you want to heat it to 90 degrees. Now, I'm going to be using a meat thermometer. I did buy a cheese thermometer, but it starts at 100 degrees. So I didn't realize that was a thing to look out for. So when you get a thermometer for your cheese making, make sure it starts under 100 degrees. Mine doesn't. So my meat thermometer does though. So we want to make sure we bring this milk to 90 degrees, and that won't take very long. While we're waiting for our milk to come to 90 degrees, we want to mix up the next step. So our next step is going to be mixing our rennet into our milk. And I'm going to be using animal rennet. I just got this off of Amazon, and you can get this off of Amazon. You can get this off of, there's a couple different stores that you can buy this from. You can get vegetable rennet, you can get different types of rennet. But the most common, I think, is probably the animal rennet. So that's the one that I'm going to be using. So for a full gallon, I'm going to give you the instructions for a full gallon and then modify it for me. For 1 full gallon, you need 1/4 teaspoon of rennet into 1 cup of water. I need 1/8 of a teaspoon of rennet into 1/2 cup of water. Okay, I can do that. Half a cup of water. And then just give this a mix. While we're waiting for my milk to come up to temperature, I just wanted to show you over my neighbor's pool, they have 2 ducks. There's the mallard and the female, or the male and the female, on their pool. And these ducks come every single year. It's one of my favorite ways to know spring is coming because the ducks show up and they have their babies here. And I think it is hysterical. So this is the first year they've had this fence up. And I was nervous that the ducks weren't going to show up because there's a fence. And would they like fly over the fence? Like what would they do? And they do. So every morning and every evening, the ducks are on the pool. And the only thing that makes me sad is it's not my pool. It's not my ducks. But I do love that every year they come back to the same place and chill in my neighbor's pool. Okay, my milk is at 90 degrees. So I'm gonna pull it off of the heat. I wanna add my rennet mixture, my water and my rennet, and then stir gently. You wanna do up and down stirring. I wanna tell you what I'm seeing because if you're making this like the first time with me, I want you to know what you see is normal, or at least I hope it's normal. There are a little bit of solids in here. It almost looks like the cheese is curdled. It's just like little strings of like almost something solid-ish. I would show you, but they're barely visible. And that was, I saw that before I added my water and my rennet. So it kind of makes sense because the cheese has curdled. It's been 90 degrees. So we're gonna go with that's normal. Now, I'm gonna make sure it's completely off the heat. I'm going to cover it and let it sit for 5 minutes. And don't touch it at all. You don't want to peek at it. You don't want to touch the stove. Don't touch it for 5 minutes. And then we'll come back and see if the curds have set. Fingers crossed.
Unfortunately, the video didn't show the next part, but you need to cut your curds. So you want to use a big knife and cut the whole way to the bottom of the cheese in a grid pattern once the cheese is set. If the cheese isn't set for 5 minutes, give it a few more minutes more to let it set. But here you can see that there are lines and there are grids in my cheese. Now we're going to bring the cheese up to 105 degrees before the next step.
While I'm waiting for the temperature to come to 105, let's see what it is first. We want to get a strainer ready, and we're going to run this through a strainer into a bowl. Okay, it's not going to take long. It's like at 90 right now, so still at 90. So let me get the strainer and a bowl. You want a microwave safe bowl too. I put all of my cheese into a strainer, and I'm just squeezing out all of the whey. You want this as dry as possible. And then I'm going to put it into, I have a glass bowl. We want to put it into a microwave safe bowl. So I'm going to put it in my bowl. And that's going to be fun to clean. So we're going to microwave for 1 minute, and then we're going to squeeze it and knead it. And we're going to do that process up until we get a long stretch. So let's microwave it for a minute. Very hot. So I'm going to be using a spoon. It's really hot. I don't know how she kneaded this by hand. And microwaving it is bringing out a lot of liquid, a lot of whey. So you want to do a couple of rounds of just microwaving it, draining it, and kneading it until you get a nice 12-inch pool before the cheese breaks. I can't do it. It's too freaking hot. If I have a plastic bag through my hands, maybe I can squeeze it then. I feel like I need to squeeze it with my hands. Don't judge me. I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know why this would work because it's only a thin layer of protection. But maybe. Well, that at least makes it, it's still hot. Still very hot, but I think it makes it maybe a teeny bit more tolerable. A teeny bit. I am getting whey everywhere. Literally everywhere. The cheese, it's getting better. It might actually. Oh, that's so hot. I'm gonna say that's good, right? Get that out. That was a nice little cheese pool. Let's do that again. We're not gonna do that again. But y'all saw it. I did it once, right? And now my hands feel like they got like a little facial. They feel a little burned and a little soft. I don't know if they go together, but they do. So this is done. Oh, we have to salt it. I haven't salted it. So she said just salt. She said just a salt to taste. So we're just gonna do a little bit of salt, just a pinch. And I threw my bags away. So we're just gonna knead this in. We're just gonna knead that in. This in a cute little ball. I want to taste it, but it's too hot. So we're going to let this cool. I'm going to clean up the mess of whey that I have everywhere. And then I'll be back when this is cooled a little bit and we can try it. My cheese I put in the fridge. My cheese has cooled. And it's edible. I think I'm going to grate it to put on the pizza. And I think it'll work. I think it'll be fine. But it's not that soft mozzarella that I was going for. So I almost wonder if I microwaved it too many times. I should have not microwaved it because it's, I don't know. Maybe I microwaved it too many times. We're going to try again. You know, practice makes perfect. But it's not perfect. This first round was not perfect. But we're going to put it on the pizza and we're going to see what happens. You never know until you try, right? So my pizza dough has been in the fridge. She is beautiful and risen and beautiful. So I'm gonna put a little bit of flour on my counter. At the very least, I was successful with the pizza crust. And that I would expect to be successful at because I've done it so many times. So let's read the directions first. So I'm going to do a thin crust pizza. There are different directions for a thin crust pizza versus a thicker crust pizza. Like a Chicago style pizza, I guess. So again, I'm using the King Arthur recipe for sourdough pizza crust. So for two thin crust pizzas, divide the dough in half and shape into a disc. Drizzle with olive oil and brush to coat the bottom, and then place the dough in the pans, cover, and let rest for 15 minutes. After this rest, gently press each piece of dough towards the edge of its pan. If it starts to shrink back, cover and let rest for 15 minutes before continuing. So for a thicker, larger pizza, so you're not doing two thin crust pizzas. They say oil around pizza pan or half sheet pan, place the dough in the pan, press it out into the edges, and give it a 15-minute rest before continuing. So I like a thin crust, so we're going to be going with a thin crust. It does say if you want like a thicker crust to put it in your pan and then let it rise. And whenever you have the thickness you want, then you can bake it. So if you want like a big Chicago style pizza, then you might want to have done this before I'm doing it. It's 6:08 and I like a thin crust pizza. So I'm going to roll it all out and then bake it. So that's my plan. But if you like a thicker crust pizza, plan this into your day, or plan this into your day so you know that you need to let this rise a little bit before baking it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pizza out. This beautiful, beautiful pizza. I'm going to cut it in half. And I am going to freeze this half. So the next time I want to make pizza or a stromboli, I have pizza ready to go. So that half is going to get frozen. This half I am going to roll out into a disc and I'm going to put it on my pizza pan. Okay, I gotta say, that's pretty round for me. That's actually not too shabby for me. I'm actually pretty excited about that. So now the pizza's gonna rest for 15 minutes and we're just gonna let that dough shrink a little bit and then we'll pull it back out and kind of help it maintain its size. But I do have the oven set at 450, so when I'm ready to bake this, the oven is ready to go. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, we're gonna do something that's a little weird. So if you are a big pizza person, part of what your harvest can be in the spring is pizza sauce. So if you're getting ready to put your garden in now, plan on putting an extra tomato in to make pizza sauce if you really like pizzas. Rachel at that 1870s homestead, she makes a really good pizza sauce recipe. I am not a pizza person, so I don't put pizza sauce back. I do put a whole bunch of tomato products back though that can be modified into pizza ingredients. So I have some enchilada sauce. I have half a jar of enchilada sauce. So what happened is my freezer in the garage, one day it popped open. It's a top and bottom, freezer on top, fridge on bottom, and it popped open one day. Luckily, it's a really good fridge and freezer. The freezer was open for 2 days and it ran the whole time. And it kept everything inside the freezer. I checked everything. Everything is completely frozen. The things on the door had started to thaw a little bit. But like that freezer ran the whole time. The garage is not insulated, and it was cold. So everything basically stayed pretty frozen. But I did have 3 chicken breasts that had started to thaw and a pound of hamburger that had started to thaw. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cook these. I'm gonna make them into freezer meals and put them in the freezer. So I have a cheeseburger pie for a future meal. And I ended up making, I didn't know what to make with the chicken, which is so weird because I eat chicken basically every single day. Chicken is my go-to protein and I just wasn't in the mood for chicken. So I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So I ended up making a chicken enchilada casserole, chicken enchilada casserole. So I love enchiladas, but I like beef enchiladas. And I don't know, somehow it became a chicken enchilada casserole. I don't know. So I have half a jar of enchilada sauce that I want to use up and I don't want it to go to waste. And it smells like enchiladas. It smells so good. So we're gonna attempt to turn this into pizza sauce or at least some sort of Italian sauce. And if you're Italian, you're not gonna judge me. It's gonna be delicious. It's gonna be delicious, guys. So I'm just gonna put this on the stove, bring it up to temperature a little bit, and then I'm gonna start adding some Italian seasoning, a little bit of garlic salt or garlic powder, a little bit of crushed red pepper. And we're gonna try to see if we can bring this from the Mexican side of things over to the Italian side. The recipe said to bake just the crust and the sauce for 5 minutes. And then we'll top it.
While I was topping it, my company showed up, so I wasn't able to continue film and actually top in the pizza, but I shredded the mozzarella cheese, which melted perfectly and tasted delicious, so that I'm considering a win. And I topped it with broccoli, bacon, caramelized onions, and banana peppers.
So this definitely isn't a popular pizza. This is not everybody's cheese and pepperoni pizza. But if I'm gonna eat pizza, I don't feel like it's that bad. So let's dive in and see if this is any good. Let's give this a try. I am a little nervous, to be honest. That's good. It tastes like pizza. It tastes like pizza. So, I'm gonna call it a success. So, not the prettiest pizza, not the best mozzarella, but it tastes really good on the pizza. It tastes like pizza. The enchilada sauce doesn't taste like enchilada sauce. It tastes a little bit like it, but it works on the pizza. I consider this a pretty successful dinner. It's not my best dinner I've ever made, but I think it's good. I want another bite. I think it's good. So I'll see you guys in the next video.